Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shills, nuts, sharks, peasants, vassals, minions, homelanders. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome. Today I'm going to talk about the good old USA, or as you should be now calling it, the Homeland. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about, this uptick in the use of the term Homeland. We see all the politicians and the media pundits and the talking heads all seeming to dramatically use the word homeland, and it's these things happen on purpose. And this uptick, of course, is part of creating that mentality of a siege state, and so this perpetual war, starting with this new war on ISIS and the state of perpetual global war, and now the terminology homeland becomes all the more important. So that's basically my theory as to why we're seeing this dramatic uptick in the use. They want to start creating that siege mentality, that insular mentality, that fortress America mentality that we are now under attack from all sides. And I kind of chafe at that whole idea that we're under attack from all sides. I know a lot of people are convinced of some impending terrorist threat, but considering we have some 13 years after 9/11, and without even getting into discussion about 9/11 itself, we have 13 years of the past, and almost every single so-called terrorist, potential terrorist attack has been some losers in some Hoboken town in somewhere around the country that are entrapped and set up by the FBI and other intelligence agencies. So this idea that we need these hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars spent on this massive global anti-terrorism network doesn't seem to have achieved much, certainly not in the economic sense. But so we go back to this whole idea of the homeland, and we also have the media getting on board, the Hollywood media, the television shows, and they've always been on board with this for obvious reasons. But here we have a show called Homeland, so this just helps create the mythology and this national mentality that's being molded. Notice Little Red Riding Hood surrounded by Arabs there, and I feel a little uncomfortable with the term homeland. One has to wonder how they chose it. We have Soviet Union using it as the motherland. We have Nazi Germany using the fatherland as the homeland, the only thing that was left. And why do they want to use this name that's in the company of those two countries, and particularly how they used it? Two countries like Russia, Soviet Union specifically, and Nazi Germany, who of course were both propaganda masters. No accident that they're mining the same kind of material for things like the homeland. And this also goes along with the whole idea of the flag pins. Let's remember that. And in Nazi Germany, and I would imagine there's something fairly comparable in the Soviet Union, there was all sorts of insignia and regalia that were designed so that people's allegiance to the party would be known at all times, at all functions, in all dress. And we find that a similar situation now in the United States, where everyone has to wear these flag pins. And I say that they have to wear them because look at the few who have chosen not to wear at one point or another, only to be chastised and have that turned into a political event in itself. And that says a lot about this whole Nazification, for lack of a better term, that we see going on in the United States with things like these mandatory flag pin wearing, and this whole idea of the homeland, and I would even lump together the whole idea of American exceptionalism. One could get into an argument about the relative merits of American exceptionalism, and there are legitimate arguments for both sides of the argument about American exceptionalism, but unfortunately we see that term bantered about in much the same way that the idea of the master race was bantered about in Nazi Germany. I'm quite uncomfortable about that. We have this mandatory uber-nationalist requirements now, particularly in the government. And a lot of that, unfortunately, seems to have some parallels with this relationship we have with Israel. We have a lot of media that's dominated by pro-Zionists and that create material like this show, and they have a lot at stake to creating that same sort of siege mentality in the United States that we find in Israel. And needless to say, some of these elements of Nazification that I've talked about are prevalent in the United States and Israel, and we find that those sort of qualities in other countries as well, including Ukraine notably. But this whole idea of the chosen people, the master race, the American exceptionalism, unfortunately, I have a hard time dividing those concepts, at least the way they're utilized by politicians and handlers, and the way they're used to manipulate the minds of the mob, who distort the meanings of a lot of these ideas. But so why do we have this buildup? Why do we have the flag pins? Why do we have the Homeland? Why do we have this exploitation of the high moral ground and this colonial message of delivering democracy to the world? And I think, as I mentioned earlier in the video, we're being set up for this siege mentality, this perpetual war. ISIS is a much better boogeyman than Al-Qaeda was, and is going to help major players achieve a lot of geopolitical aims in the area. And so this whole smoke and mirrors and propaganda machinery that's operating in the United States is helping to color the outcome of what we see certainly unfolding in the Middle East and around the globe. But so anyway, I'd be curious to hear from other people what they think. Are they noticing the fact that Homeland is being used more and more and more, and the purpose for why there's an uptick? Is it accidental? Is it just the way these talking points grow with a life of their own through the media and politicians? And what do you think about this whole thing with the flag pins and this mining this same sort of imagery that very notorious regimes in history have used, and particularly this McCarthyian witch hunt for people who don't wear their flag pins, and questioning their allegiance and questioning their loyalty to the United States. And then, oddly enough, even in the United States, in our government, even questioning your loyalty to Israel is something to be worthy of virulence and a witch hunt. So obviously that connection is there as well. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.